Hi, welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. I'm so excited because today I'm here with Jenna Hollenstein, and she's a nutritionist and the author of this great book, Eat to Love. So please, welcome.
Thank you.
Please tell me just about your book and really why you felt so passionate about writing your book.
Yeah, thank you so much. And when I started writing this book, I felt really strongly about acknowledging the spiritual aspects of our relationship with food and our bodies. And so as I have practiced nutrition therapy, and intuitive eating, I've seen more and more parallels between these practices that very much reference the wisdom of the body with the spiritual practices of Buddhist meditation and philosophy, studying that philosophy. And so this was really the marriage of those two things in helping people rediscover a completely different way of relating to food and to their bodies.
Great. So you said one key word here about was intuitive eating. So please explain that to our viewers, what that is.
So intuitive eating is a model. It's a scientifically validated model of eating. It has 10 principles. It was created by two registered dietitians, Evelyn Tribbley and Elise Resch. Both of them are in California. And it was created in response to the observation that when they were using traditional weight loss focused approaches with their clients, they were initially successful, and then they would come back later having regained the weight and then some. And in addition, just feeling like failures, feeling confused, feeling sort of like, what's happening here? Like this, is this all my fault?
Right.
And so there's been over 100 studies done now at this point on intuitive eating, and generally the characteristics of intuitive eaters are that they eat primarily for physical reasons. They give themselves unconditional permission to eat, so there's no good and bad foods.
Okay.
And they have ways of dealing with emotions that don't involve food.
I think that's key, like emotions, right? Because I think a lot of us, some of us were happy, we eat. Some of us were sad, we eat.
Yeah.
We're stressed out, we eat.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a really difficult space to be in because, then we overeat. And I think you also said something that's really key is like everybody goes on these crazy diets, right? And it's like, wow, I lost this weight, but now I stopped eating this way and I've gained back all the weight and then some.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You feel like a failure. Like, what have you said to like some of your clients who have gone through that just never-ending cycle? How have you tried to push them towards a different avenue?
Yeah. I think it's so important for us to understand that it is not a personal failure when diets don't work. There are such strong physiologic and psychological measures in place to rebel against dieting, which is essentially starvation. Right? So I think of it as our body's trying to protect us.
Right.
And so what we see as failing at diets is actually our bodies working really hard to protect us. Because one of the ways that they do that is by storing fat.
Right.
And they adapt to whatever we throw at them in order to do that. Right? And so I think it's really important to really reframe that, because the diet industry, which is like a $70 billion industry, is deeply invested in convincing you that it's your personal failure, right?
Yeah.
If you succeed, they'll take credit for that.
Of course they will.
But if it doesn't succeed, it's your personal failure, and we'll give you 50% off our new membership, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, that really messes with your head.
Yeah.
And it creates this sort of like cyclical dependence.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's the diet that causes the problem in the first place, but you think you need the diet then for your ongoing wellness and basically survival.
Correct. Yeah, and I know for myself when, especially having worked for like athletes and musicians and, they're in such a spotlight all the time that, of course, you talk about performance and body image. But I know for myself, I talk about food and preparing food for them, and I really try to, steer them away from like the diet, right? And get them more on a balanced lifestyle, right? Because I tell people all the time, like, I'm never giving up chocolate cake. I love it.
Why would you?
It's fantastic, right? So for me, like, I know if I eat that every day, I A, am not going to feel great, and B, like, it's not good for me health-wise, right? But knowing that there's a balance in life, you having vegetables, having grains, yes, eating carbs, there's a time and a place, like knowing how to do that, in a balanced way. And I think sometimes that can be hard to really teach people that, right?
Yeah. And I think, too, a lot of people who feel like they can't trust themselves get stuck on the idea of balance as a static point in space, some imaginary, like, perfect balance.
Right.
And what I think is important to convey is that this is a moving target, right? Humans are, like, naturally inconsistent. We don't need the same number of nutrients and vitamins and minerals and everything every day, because our bodies are adaptation machines. Right?
Right.
Again, they will adapt to anything we throw at them.
Right.
And so once they start to learn that, like all human bodies, they need to be fed regularly throughout the day, they need a balance of protein, carb, and fat. Once they generally learn where those things come from, and they remove the restriction that's associated with like the good food and the bad food, then it gets interesting, because then they can start to like notice their own experience.
Right.
As opposed to rebelling against the imposed limitations of somebody outside of them.
Right.
Which we generally internalize and then impose on ourselves, thinking that it's our will. Right? And so this is when people can start to connect the dots between, oh, this is what it feels like when I have a desire for chocolate cake and I give myself that. This is about how much I need to feel satisfied in this case. You know? Oh, this is what it feels like when I have this like momentary urge for chocolate cake and then realize I need to call a friend. Because the hunger is not actually for chocolate cake. The hunger is for some sort of emotional support or something.
That's real. That's real.
And so really noticing hungers, the different types of hungers, like physical hunger, heart hunger.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Hunger that comes from just like seeing something. Right? I have a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Or hearing something. He reads a story about pizza. It's 8:30 at night, and he wants pizza all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah.
And so
my daughter's the same way. Yeah. She's 2.
Right. So it's like learning that you don't have to respond to every urge the moment it arises. You can notice it and then say, okay, I do have a taste for pizza. I'm gonna have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or I do have a taste for chocolate cake. I'm gonna have it right now because that is my favorite chocolate cake.
Right.
For me it's carrot cake.
Yeah, carrot.
Anyone who knows me knows it's not that I've never met a carrot cake I didn't like. I'm very specific about it, right?
Yeah.
I know exactly like the texture and the sweetness and things like that.
What's in it, and
But then you get to prioritize your preferences,
right?
As opposed to feeling like you need to battle with the carrot cake or the chocolate cake.
Right.
Like you need to resist it, and it's a test of will.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You said something that was really good, and I think our bodies as being moving targets. And I've really noticed this as I've gotten older and as I've aged. My body has different needs.
Totally.
My body at 20 and my body at 35 is very different. I can't eat the same things, and sometimes I just feel like I just need different nutrients. And so for me, I have to kind of assess that, become more aware of that and kind of accept that. It's okay to, have these kind of these carbs or these things here in this space and know that my body's actually needing that nutrients. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that because A, we're not aware, and B, we freeze ourselves in time. I'm forever 21, right? My body should always do this.
We measure ourselves against that as the standard.
Exactly.
Our body at 21 versus our body at
wherever it is. Yeah. And I think that's hard for people to kind of move past that point. And it's I think you said something that's so valuable, for all of us, is that understanding that it's a moving target. we have to move with it. Like, you
Right.
can't stay there.
We are literally always changing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another piece of what I think the Buddhist philosophy has to offer to this idea of a different relationship with food in our bodies, is that impermanence is real. Okay? Nothing lasts. Right? It's like I've taught my kid who every time a toy breaks and he's heartbroken, I'm like, I'm so sorry. What do we know about things? He goes, they don't last. You know? And it's just such an important reminder. We're not taught to remember that.
Right.
Right? We're not taught to tolerate discomfort, and we're taught to fight change.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many products are targeted, to women and
the eye area,
and
right?
the eye area, or the the effects of gravity on other parts of
everything.
our body, right? I mean, so it's all about stopping the clock.
Yeah.
Instead of what you're saying, recognizing things as they evolve,
Right.
and responding to them in real time.
Great. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you would like to pick up a copy of her book, you can head to Amazon and you can find it under Eat to Love. And we'll see you next week for Wellness Wednesday.